Do you see this man right behind me? This is Daniel Stubbington, and he created this game. Welcome to Void Breaker. Look how insane this gameplay is behind me. It is crazy. So let me talk about what this game is and what this game is about, kind of the history of it as we dive into it. If you're new, just joining me, I have talked about in my roguelike video that I'm going to focus on one roguelike per month, and for this month I chose Void Breaker. So for this video I'm going to talk about kind of the history of it, just a brief history, and then talk about what I'm experiencing so far and what I like. So like I said, this game was created by one man by the name of Daniel Stubbington, and so you can see his entire story. I will link that in the description of this video. This is the second game that he created. His first game was called Entropy Center, which came out in 2022. It's kind of a Portal inspired game, but also very cinematic in its quality. And he released Void Breaker, which is now in early access and released in August of last year. I first heard about this game from the III Initiative showcase back in April, and I was blown away by what I was seeing. I was like, I cannot believe this is one man's dream. This is one man's vision creating this game, and I cannot believe the system. So I joined the playtest when it was released, and then played a little bit of it on release when I bought it. I was like, this game is amazing, but I was already knee deep in other games, so I was like, I gotta go back to this game at some point because this is phenomenal. It's a very fun game, and it's already kind of getting back in kind of some of the FPSs that I like, and so this is great. This is a great start to the year, getting into an FPS inspired roguelike, and I enjoy it. So what is this game about? What do you do? What is kind of the narrative? What is the story about? So essentially, you are a character kind of trapped in this endless cycle, being dominated by this malicious AI, which is kind of on brand for what we're experiencing right now in real life, where AI is kind of taking over the world as you speak, but not to this degree. I don't know if we'll ever get to that point, if we'll ever get to kind of like a Space Odyssey 9000 kind of situation where we're basically in endless simulations where we're kind of repeating the experience. But who knows where we'll be in the future. I don't know where we'll be, but in any case, you're in a series of combat trials where you're just testing out different systems that the AI is just trying to replicate. You are the 1473rd person or experiment or test subject in this, and you're just going throughout the run. So the narrative kind of explains why you're kind of in this endless cycle where you do die, but you come back, and it's explained very thoughtfully. But you interact with someone who was in this system beforehand and is helping you kind of break the system. That's kind of the setup of the narrative, and it explains what you're doing and what you're trying to do. You're essentially trying to fight back against this rogue AI in all the different systems they're in by increasing your levels. And so how do you do that? What is the combat like? What are the systems? What are kind of the roguelike elements of Void Breaker? So in its current state, you have two weapons to choose from. At least right now, you have a pistol and you have an assault rifle that you can unlock with various currencies that you have. And so the pistol and assault rifle, you have just the basic abilities. So you can shoot, you can reload, you can aim. You also have some movement abilities. You can dash, you can double jump, but then it gets interesting as you go forward in each run. So the main part of the combat is not just the gunplay, but also the destruction, because as you've seen and as you saw from earlier, destruction is the name of the game. So it's fully destructible environments when you're in these combat zones. And so how you fight back against these waves of enemies is that you kind of literally have to bring down the house on top of them, which makes them weaker, which also gives you health and ammo, which helps you reload. And so you want to destroy the buildings. You also have a gravity tether that you can grab various explosives or chairs or tables or anything you can find to throw your enemies, to throw back at them, to stagger them, and also weaken them to get health and ammo as well. So that's a big and a major component. You need to be able to destroy the environment around you to get through and survive all of these crazy runs that you have. And so you do that and you get through the run, and then you get into the loot, which contains the various types of modules. You have projectile modules, which essentially changes the way your bullets move, be it from fire to ice to electricity, and you have rockets that can shoot out. You also have weapon modules to change how the bullets shoot. You also have different sights that you can equip. You can also have different ability mods. You are limited by the type of module slots that you have by each weapon, but you can get things called invokers to increase where the modules are, also to increase the amount of which these modules proc essentially. So for an example, if you get a fire module and it has a chance to set enemies on fire, place an invoker mod next to it, it can increase the amount of times it can set enemies on fire. So there are literally endless possibilities and endless combinations that you can put in with your modules that you get. And so far in some of the gameplay that I've experienced, some of my favorite weapon combinations come from what's called the Digistruct module, which essentially gives you more damage against the destruction. So you basically just shoot at the buildings and they fall on top of it, which is super satisfying to kind of mow down enemies by destroying a building or just destroying the floor beneath you as all of the debris and the rubble falls on your enemies. You take them out, you get ammo and you get health therein to kind of refill and all that. And so that's really fun. It is oh so satisfying, and that's one of my favorite abilities so far. And you can also pair that with fire, electricity, or freeze. And also you can pair that with also the ability to drop freezing or corrosive damage on the enemies as you destroy the buildings. So the build potential with that is really cool, but something that will happen is that if you kind of go too heavy on one particular type of build, you kind of get to the boss, which the boss has destructible things that you can shoot at it, but you won't have like a lot of base damage to take out the enemy. So you kind of have to experiment and play with the type of modules that you get. So do you go fully in on one particular build, or you kind of have and kind of backload everything to kind of have variety within your build as you go forth? There'll also be some enemies that have different elemental effects where you'll have burning enemies or freezing enemies or enemies that will do poison damage or electrical damage, or there'll be kind of sub mini bosses that are a lot more stronger than you think. There'll also be changes to the environment. There's one time I was going through a combat area and the gravity was changing, where it was actually great for me because I was jumping high up in the air and just raining down grenades, which I didn't mention. You have grenades that help you destroy the environment around you as well. So you can throw these grenades and you're jumping up 50 feet in the air, shooting down enemies, and it's so satisfying. But things like that can happen. But you can also do things like go to corruptor modules, or also things like obelisk, but kind of change and enhance, or it can either enhance or give you debuffs, kind of a risk reward system where enemies can be stronger or weaker based on the effects of that corruptor module as well. So yeah, they can be stronger, they can be weaker, but it just depends on where you want to go. It depends on what route you want to take, and there are multiple routes to take after each combat area. So you can either go to a combat area immediately, or you can go into a shop, or you can go into a random encounter, which will essentially will teleport you into a different area. And that can be really interesting. Something that happened in the footage I'm showing you right behind me is that there was a room I encountered where the enemies were frozen in time, but if you look away, they will attack you, and they're very, very strong. You're encouraged by your friend that you've been interacting in when you go back to your hub area to not look away, because they will come after you fast. And so that was a really scary and kind of almost like a survival horror aspect of the game, because I was basically going slow, going backward, and making sure that they weren't hitting me. But then there were other enemies that I found that also hit me, so I was trying to figure out the best way to turn and get away from that. And at the end of that, I got a legendary module, so it's great. So big risk, but also big reward in there. And I did not realize that was going to happen. So that is some of the things that you will encounter in some of these random rooms as you go forth. So you can do that, you can get loot, you can go to shops. So there's just a lot of different variety so far, and I am having a blast with this game. It's crazy how this game is just still early access, where there's just a lot of content to mine and a lot of content to explore so far. It's already had one major update where you can, it's kind of some in-game content once you get past all of the major bosses, which I haven't done yet. Still trying to get past our first boss, and so so far I think there are 3 zones at the moment. But in February there's going to be another major content drop. It's going to introduce new weapon, which is basically the SMG, and then some other content therein, sort of more some in-game content, maybe some more modules, so forth. So I will talk about that in February, but for now I'm going to do more runs, going to talk about more of what I like about the game as I go forward and clock more hours in this game. Let me know if you're going to be playing Void Breaker with me this month, or if you played Void Breaker already. Let me know how many hours you have in it. Let me know if you're experiencing any crazy builds, or if you have any tips for any of the builds that I need to look out for in the world of Void Breaker. Like I said before, this game was made by one person, and I'm so impressed with the amount of content and the quality of this solo dev project. So shout out to you, Daniel Stubbington, for creating this game. I'm gonna go right back in to play more runs. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you play Board Breaker with me this month. And if you haven't picked it up, I will drop the link down in the description of this video below. Thank you so much for watching. My name's Shike, and I will see you on the next one. Peace out.